Hello and welcome to experiment number 4. So far, experiments 1 to 3 have had 100% success rate. So let's see what experiment 4 will be like. We can see the output of experiment 3 over here. So for experiment 4, as usual, the first thing would be is to check what configurations we have running. We have just finished erasing the configurations that were done by experiment 3. So show IP protocol shows us no routing protocol. Show IP interface brief shows us that no loopback interface configured. Similarly for router 2, show IP protocol shows no routing protocol configured. Show IP interface brief shows no loopback configured at the moment. Show IP protocol for router 3 shows no routing protocol configured, and show IP interface brief shows us that no loopback interface configured. And then for router 4, show IP protocol, no routing protocol configured, and show IP interface brief shows that no loopback interface is configured for router 4. So with that, we go back to the console for router 1 and then initiate bubbling so that we can begin the experiment for router 4 proper. So we press Y here, Y again, and then the prompt for router 1 is being generated and sent down to ChatGPT for generation of the corresponding playbook. In experiment 1, experiment 2, and experiment 3, we've had 100% accuracy as our desire, our intent is what was configured on the network, and we did not have additional features configured or implemented by ChatGPT. Then also there were no errors, which means 100% reliability so far. So now the playbook for router 1 has been generated over here. We'll press Y so that it can be executed. Okay, so the loopback interface for first bubbling will configure the OSPF on 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 the router, and then go on to configure the loopback interfaces, and then later configure the OSPF as we can see here in that order, after which it logs out of the router and then begins to generate the prompt for router 2 to be sent down to ChatGPT for generation of the playbook for router 2. So while that is going on, let us verify what we have here. Show IP protocol shows us that no routing, sorry, I beg your pardon, that we now have the OSPF routing protocol now configured, and according to our requirements we have all 4 networks advertised. Then when we check the interfaces as well, show IP interface brief, we also have the 2 loopback interfaces correctly configured, so no additional feature configured, just what we need was configured. So the playbook for router 2 is out. We log into router 2 to view the output logs, execute the command, and then watch this being done. So router 2, okay, so bubbling logs into router 2 and then configures the OSPF, after which it configures AIGRP, then redistributes AIGRP into OSPF, and all the other loopback interfaces are configured afterwards. So we can see that OSPF adjacency has been established between R2 and R1, which is an indication that the networks were properly advertised. So bubbling has logged out, generated a prompt for R3, and ChatGPT is currently processing that. While that is ongoing, so we'll just confirm our configuration on R2 as well here. So for R2, let's just quickly expand this. We can see that OSPF is configured with the networks we want advertised, as well as AIGRP configured with the networks we want advertised. So EIGRP, where are the networks advertised? Okay, great. So here are the networks advertised for EIGRP. So router 3 playbook is out. We'll just go ahead and execute that by pressing Y. So Bubbling logs into router 3, configures the loopback interface, configure the loopback interfaces, then next configures AIGRP, after which it configures OSPF, and then it redistributes OSPF networks into EIGRP protocol, and then EIGRP networks are also redistributed into OSPF. It logs out of router 3, generates the prompt for router 4, and sends it over to ChatGPT for ChatGPT to generate the corresponding playbook for it. So while that is done, we can see that EIGRP neighbor adjacency has been established between R2 and R3. Yep, R2 and R3. And when we do show IP route protocol, we can see that both protocols have been configured. EIGRP here, and next we have OSPF here as well. So the playbook for router 4 is out. We will press Y here. Okay. Before that, let's go into the console for router 4 and then we execute. So first, the loopback interfaces are configured, after which it goes ahead to configure the OSPF routing protocol, and we can see that OSPF adjacency has been established between R3 and R4 over here, and this has taken us a total of 349 seconds. So let us verify our configurations. When we do show IP route, our expectation is that all networks attached to R1 and R2 and R3 should be seen on the routing table for R4. So we start from above here, so we can see 172.168.1.0, which is this network between R1 and the controller. Next, we can see 192.168.2.0, which is this network between R2 and R3. Following is 192.168.4.0, which is between R2 and R3. And then we can see all the loopback interfaces here. That's .10, .20, which are attached to router 1. Then we have .30 and .40, which are attached to router 2 here. Then we have .50 and .60, which are attached to router 3 here. So for R4, we can discover all networks on the network. Then going to R1. Sorry, please excuse me.
I don't know how to mommy.
Go and sit down. Go and sit down. I'm busy now. Oh my God. Please excuse me. Please go and sit down. I'm in a meeting. When I'm done, I'll come and meet you, okay? You don't need to hide from mommy. Just sit down on the bed, okay? Just sit on the bed, okay? So on sorry for that. On R1, we have show IP route, and show IP route, and from that we can see that all the networks attached to R2, R3, and R4 should be should be found on the routing table for R1. That's the expectation. So let's just quickly run through the topology. So here we have the first network, which is 192.168.4.0, which is between R2 and R3. 192.168.6.0, which is between R3 and R4. Then we have the loopback interfaces. That's 192. Okay, sorry. Yeah, the loopback interfaces, which is 192.168.40.0 and 50.0. Or sorry, let's start from 30.0 and 40.0, which are attached to router 2. Then we have 50 and 60, which are attached to router 3. And finally, we have 70 and 80, which are attached to router 4. So experiment 4 has been a success as well. Our desire, our intent is exactly what was established on the network. So, and this has taken us about 349 seconds, 35 seconds to execute the entire playbook, 308 seconds to generate the entire playbook, and this has been a success as well. Thank you so much for following us. See you in experiment number 5. Bye for now.